Welcome to Canadian Innovators, the show that celebrates innovation, entrepreneurs, and the Canadian spirit. I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert in the economy to tell their story and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as share ideas for economic growth and prosperity. Canadians are saddled with unaffordable energy and fuel costs. These costs make Canada an uncompetitive location to run a manufacturing plant and place a huge burden on the Canadian public. And this is surprising due to the fact that Canada is blessed with an abundance of natural resources. Joining me to discuss our friend of the program, former federal Liberal cabinet minister Dan McTeague. Dan is an 18-year veteran of the House of Commons, and Dan is widely known for his tireless work on energy pricing and saving Canadians money through accurate price forecast. His parliamentary initiatives aimed at helping Canadians cope with affordable energy costs led to providing Canadians heating and fuel rebates on at least 2 occasions. Dan is presently the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. Joining Dan is electricity expert Parker Gallant. Parker Gallant is a retired banker whose 33-year career with the TD Bank included many years in international banking, where he had responsibility as VP for both trade finance and correspondent banking relationships. Parker's retirement allows him to spend time researching the energy sector, and he has applied his banker's common sense to analyzing the sector's approach to the production, transmission, and distribution of electricity to Ontario consumers. Parker's a regular contributor to the Financial Post on matters related to the energy sector. He also has a very informative blog, Parker Gallant's Energy Perspectives, which you can find online. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Hello, Jocelyn.
Glad to be here, Jocelyn.
So let's get right to it. I know we've got a lot to cover. We need to get energy policy in this country right. It's quite a mess right now. In Ontario, we pay some of the highest electricity rates in North America, and we have a convoluted 2-tier system for industrial pricing, which means some manufacturers have affordable electricity and some are left to pay very uncompetitive rates, forcing many manufacturers to flee the country. Parker, let's get started. How did we get here?
Well, we have to go back to the Dalton McGuinty days after he was elected in 2003. And of course, his principal secretary was none other than Gerald Butts. And, he's a firm believer in climate change and that has been caused by mankind. So that's where it started. And the result was Butts's influence was to get the McGuinty team on his side to advocate for closing the coal plants and passing the Green Energy Act. And people in Ontario know what the Green Energy Act is all about and what it's done to them. They created the OPA, which is the Ontario Power Authority, and they were contracted to go out and get contracts for wind and solar. And they did a great job because they paid ridiculous prices. And we had people, companies arriving from all over the world to sign up those contracts. I mean, they were handing out 20-year contracts and paying as much as over 82 cents a kilowatt hour for solar panels on somebody's roof, and 13.5 cents for wind generation. And of course, those contracts were picked up widely, and they wound up contracting for about 5,000 megawatts of capacity of wind and about 2,600 megawatt capacity of solar. And we're living with that today, all right? To go on a little bit, closing those coal plants costs Ontario Power Generation a lot of money. But in fact, Ontario Power Generation applies to the OEB for rate increases, so they get them. So the costs of those closings were around $500 million. And then they converted 2 other plants, 2 small coal plants up in Northern Ontario to biomass. And that cost another $170 million. So that's why we are where we are today.
And Parker, where did those costs go? I know a lot of manufacturers, small and medium-sized manufacturers, had to pick up the costs. We have about 15 seconds left. Is that who will end up paying for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that cost has now been shifted since the Ford government got in power. They've shifted those costs, $6.5 billion,